Welcome to Startup School. My name is Eric Medjukovsky. I'm a partner here at Combinator. I'm going to be the facilitator of this course. It's really great to have you. I'm excited. This is actually the first course that I've ever taught, so it's going to be fun. My wife is actually a lecturer of biochemistry at a university, so she wished me well as I set off to work today. As long as I don't have to grade 15,000 final exams, I think I'm going to survive. Here at YC, we try to treat a lot of the projects that we work on as if they were startups themselves, so we apply a similar methodology to them. So in that vein, I figured maybe the best way to kick off Startup School is actually to pitch it to you. Startup School is a free online course that teaches you how to start a company. It's 8 weeks long, and we offer some of the best advice available on the internet. We also have an amazing community of founders from all over the world, probably one of the largest communities of startup founders on the internet. We also offer you over $30,000 worth of deals with AWS, Brex, Cloud, DigitalOcean, and many other places. So that's it. That's the essence of what Startup School is. We're really excited to have you on board for the next 8 weeks. There is still time to sign up. So if you have any friends who are founders who you think who should be part of the course as well, just let them know, send them the sign up link, startupschool.org, and get them in as well. So to get you pumped up about Startup School, I've got a couple motivational stats. The first one is from last batch of Startup School. Over 9,000 companies launched their product to the public during the batch. We had over 30% of the entire cohort do this. Launching is one of the most critical things that you can do as an early stage startup, so we were really excited to see this. The second thing we noticed was that over 50% of the companies that we interviewed for the YC Core program participated in Startup School. That's tremendously huge. We think Startup School is the perfect way that you could learn about starting a company, and we're excited to see so many of you apply to YC after that. Finally, over 120 companies who participated in Startup School were actually funded and are now in YC in this batch. That's more than 50% of this batch of YC. So again, Startup School is really designed as the perfect way to get your startup going and eventually to get into YC. Here's how you can get the most out of Startup School. Number one, set yourselves a hard goal. If you haven't launched your company yet, maybe your goal for the 8-week program will be to launch and to get your first users. If you've already launched your company, maybe you could set a really tough goal for yourselves, like growing your revenue week over week by 10%, or maybe growing the number of users that are using your service every week by 10%. A really tough goal helps you focus your energy and make sure that you're always working towards the most important thing for your startup. The second thing is to be honest with yourselves about what's working and what's not. We've collected some of the best startup advice specifically to solve a lot of the common problems that you may have as an early stage startup, but you won't begin to actually solve them until you recognize what the problems are and begin to seek out advice on the Startup School library or the lectures that we've put together to solve those problems. The third thing is to participate. We've got a ton of different things that you can do as part of Startup School, including weekly group office hour sessions, question and answer video sessions that we've got every week, forum threads about many different topics. So now that you're here, now that you're in the course, it's really important to participate as well. And finally, I got to reiterate it, launch your company. Many of the early stage companies that are participating in Startup School haven't launched yet. So the most effective thing, the best use of your time can be to launch your company. This is not actually the first time that we're running Startup School, obviously, so we've gotten a bunch of feedback from the last course and from a couple other courses that we've run on how to make it better. One of the things that you reported to us, that other founders reported to us, was that the forum wasn't as useful as it could be. So we're overhauling it this year. We've hired a community manager to help run it, so we think that it's going to be much more effective and a much better place for you to spend time during this course. The second bit of feedback we got was that the group sessions could be more effective. So over the last year, we worked to overhaul these group sessions, making it easier for you to connect with other founders in your space or other founders in your geography. So we really encourage you to try them out and to participate with the weekly group sessions. We've also decided to run the course more frequently. Obviously, people start companies at all different times during the year. They couldn't afford to wait to get the advice from Startup School just once a year, so we're now running the course more during the year. We're also constantly experimenting with tweaks and adjustments to the course. We sometimes send out surveys or we post questions on the forums. So please, if you get them, help us by answering the questions. Any feedback you have will help us directly improve the course, not just this course, as well as other courses that we're planning to run. Here's some tips from founders that went through startup school last year to help you improve your experience. The first thing is, during the weekly sessions that you have, be clear and concise as you describe your company to other founders. The number one problem that founders have is talking about their company. Sometimes we kind of get ahead of ourselves and use too many words. Be sure as you're participating in the weekly group sessions to be clear and concise. The second tip that founders have is to use the weekly updates section as a chance to check in with your goals. So as you're tracking towards the 8-week goal that you've set for yourselves, be sure to update the system every week with how you're tracking towards that. Use it as a benchmark and always use it to force yourself to do better the next week. Now it's time for your first office hour. Similar to the way that a university runs, Startup School is designed around lecture content as well as working directly with the companies. I'd like to take the time now to work directly with you to work on 2 important first steps of the course. The first one is how to explain exactly what you do, and the second one is how to set goals. We at YC like to talk about something called a one-liner. It's basically a one-line description of what your company does, what your product is, or who it's for. Oftentimes companies use their one-liner to explain what they do to potential investors, employees, customers, vendors, suppliers, even their parents. So it's really important to figure out how to explain your company quickly and effectively. You'll be practicing this during the weekly group video sessions on Thursdays. It's actually one of the first things that we encourage all companies to do when they join the session is to go around and share their one-liner. As founders, we love to talk. So oftentimes when we explain what our company does, we try to use as many words as possible. I'm totally guilty of this as well, but that's not the most effective way to describe what you do. The second problem that we usually have when we're describing our companies is we use industry-specific jargon or complex words to describe it. Here's an example. Indie Cloud is a know-how and synergy platform. It's an actual one-liner from a startup. It's not that effective because it doesn't explain pretty much anything that the company does. Keep in mind as you're putting together your one-liner that it should be conversational. You should be able to use it in kind of a casual conversation. You can't use jargon. Don't assume that the person who's listening to your one-liner actually knows about your industry or knows any specific words. You don't need a preamble. You don't need to explain the entire backstory to your startup before explaining what you do. In fact, this is called burying the lead. Sometimes people will talk for minutes before they actually explain what in the world their startup does. Finally, as we've mentioned before, be concise. You don't want to take up too much time. You basically want to catch someone's attention, catch their imagination, and then get the opportunity to answer more questions over time. Here's an example of a great one-liner from a YC company from the past batch. Tandem is building virtual offices for remote teams. Simple, clear, it explains exactly what they're working on, but at the same time offers the opportunity for people to ask questions and to find out more. Another good example, obviously, is something like Dropbox. Dropbox synchronizes files from your computer with your team's computers. Again, it explains exactly what it does without using jargon or without being too complex. Okay, the next most important thing that you can work on is to set a tough goal for your team to accomplish over the upcoming 8 weeks. The best goals are actually numeric. They're things that you can track on a weekly basis and you can see the numbers move. Qualitative goals are also useful, things like have you launched or not, but the most effective goals to set for your company are numeric because then you can very, very clearly track your progress. For most companies that have launched, the most important metric to track is revenue. For an early stage startup, we usually like to recommend that companies track their revenue instead of some other metric because it's the clearest expression of whether the company is on a good track or not. Companies that are earning revenue have already solved a lot of the other problems, like what exactly is the product, who is the product for, how to get your first how to get your first customers. So when you're sharing your status or your progress with people like investors, they don't have to ask as many questions because they know that any company that has revenue has already solved those early problems. If you think that you're further away from getting your first customer to start paying you money or to earn revenue, then it might be good to track other things like have you launched or not. Again, as I mentioned before, you can't really begin to earn revenue until you actually launch publicly and begin to get customers. The metrics that you track are really important to be visible to your whole team. There's a good story. The founders of Airbnb, when they were going through YC back in the day, they actually put a sign up with their revenue goal for the week in the bathroom. So every time someone had used the bathroom, they would see exactly how they were tracking towards their weekly goal. The best founders that I've worked with set weekly goals rather than monthly or kind of quarterly goals because they feel a tighter connection to them. It's easy to set, say, a month-long goal and then really only notice that you haven't hit that in the few days leading up to it. Think about writing a term paper in university. It's very easy to keep pushing it off until the last night before it's due. So again, we've seen the best founders that we work with, they set weekly goals and they track their progress towards them every week. We've got an upcoming lecture with Michael Seibel about how to create a product development process. But those processes only work if you've already set goals and you're beginning to track your metrics. So this week, take the time with you and your co-founders to figure out what the most important metric you can track is, whether you can use revenue or not. Begin to set a weekly goal for yourself, as well as the overarching 8-week goal for the Startup School course. Next up, we've got Kyle, who's an engineer here at YC and running Startup School.
Hey everyone, I'm Kyle Corbett. I'm the lead developer on Startup School, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about the software features you're going to use as part of this course. So there are 6 main parts to the Startup School course on the software side, and I'm going to go through all of them, but the most important thing you need to know is that the first 2 are the only required ones, and those are the company updates and attending group sessions. So I'm going to go through a lot of other things, resources that are available to you as well. We hope they're really useful to you, but only use what will actually help your company be more successful. We don't want you spending any more time on this than will be the absolutely most helpful for your company. Let's talk about company updates. The company update is sort of the backbone of the Startup School software. This is an update that you'll submit once a week. We start prompting for it on Monday at midnight Pacific time. And you're going to fill out the progress you made on your company during the preceding week. There are like 8 or 10 questions. It's very simple. Most of them are just like numbers you type in. This should not take you more than 15 minutes. If it takes you more than 15 minutes to fill this out, you're doing it wrong. You should not spend that much time on it. It's really simple, and there are really 2 main reasons we asked for this update. The first one is it just gives you a chance to step out of the grind for a few minutes and really think about what your primary metric is and whether the work you're doing is actually the most important thing to drive towards that. It's really easy as a founder to sort of like get off on some tangent, and it's really not what you need to be doing to drive your company forward. And so we hope you take these updates as an opportunity to think about that and really concentrate on what matters most. The other thing is it'll help you track your progress over time. So there are some numbers you fill out, like your primary metric, the number of users you talk to every week, your morale, things like that. And just you getting a sense over time of how your company is doing is really valuable just for introspection. Like I said, we start those on Monday and they need to be submitted by Wednesday. The reason why we ask you to submit it by Wednesday is because we use those updates for scheduling your group sessions. And so that's what I'm going to talk about next. Group sessions are video calls that we set up with your peers that happen once a week, and they're really just a chance for you to meet others in the startup community and support each other. There are a few reasons we do this. A big part of it is just sort of like the motivation. It's hard, especially for those of you who are solo founders out there. If you're not around other people who are really doing the same thing and in the same grind, sometimes it's hard to stay motivated, and we found that group sessions can be really helpful for that, just talking to others in a similar situation. And it's also just kind of like a commitment device. If you know that this is coming up, it helps, at least for me, when I've participated in these in the past, it helps me to make sure that I actually have something new to report, and we find that that's really helpful. That's the reason that we do group sessions. On Wednesday, when you submit your update, after all those updates are collected, we will form the groups, and then you'll get an email sometime on Wednesday evening or perhaps Thursday morning, depending on your time zone, with a link to your actual group session, the page for your group session, and the other companies that you'll be meeting with. The actual group sessions will take place at some point on Thursday for all of you. You have a chance to choose kind of which time you want to have the group session. Depending on that, we'll schedule you for sometime on Thursday. The discussion format for the group sessions is really simple, and when you join it, you'll see that there's kind of like an outline on the side that'll walk you through it. Essentially, we choose one company that is the moderator, is kind of like running the discussion. And after that, everyone will go around, you'll give your one-liner to introduce yourself, and then you'll go around a second time and talk about the progress you made towards your primary metric in the last week, what most helped you or hurt you on your primary metric, and the biggest obstacle you're facing right now. And again, this is just a good way for you to talk to other companies, get support and feedback, and concentrate on what's most important for your company. As we're forming these group sessions, we are trying to match you with companies that are as similar to you as possible. There are a number of factors we take into account as we're doing that. Things like the vertical you're in, your geographic location, your commitment, progress, things like that we're trying to find others who are in a similar stage to you and can relate to you, help answer your questions, and that you feel like it's a really good use of your time. So we'll put you in a group of 4 to 8 other companies, and you'll all sort of be at a similar stage and be able to understand the problems that the other companies in your group are facing. The next thing in the Startup School software are the actual lessons. And like I mentioned, these are not technically required, but in my experience, this is perhaps the highest value part of Startup School, and I really recommend you check them out. The reason why we didn't make them required is because there may be some specific lectures that are not applicable to your company. Like, for example, if we're talking about hard tech, that may not be applicable. However, we find that most of the lectures, in fact, we've designed most of the lectures to be applicable to all early stage startups, no matter what it is you're building. And these, I can attest to this as a former founder myself, and just seeing the experience the YC partners have. These really are going to help you build a better company, and I really recommend you going through and finding the ones that are most applicable for yourselves. Next, we have the forum. So the forum is really the center of the Startup School community. This is a place where you can share the struggles you're having, ask questions of the community, and also give answers. The one thing we'll ask is, before you post, try and think, is this question going to be something that's generally applicable and something that can really help other startups as well? And if it is, then that's a huge contribution and we really want it. And on the other hand, if you have a lot of expertise, please go in the forum, see if there are people who are asking questions that you can answer. That'll just make this whole community so much stronger. Like Eric mentioned earlier, we have a community manager. We're making this a really high quality place where we want founders to be able to get good answers to the questions. The one big warning I have is occasionally we do have founders who will try and scrape or spam, collect email addresses or company links or things like this off the forum, and they think that this is some way to, lead gen or something. It doesn't work. You're not actually going to get leads from spamming people, and you're just going to make the experience bad for everyone else. So please don't do that. It will just hurt the experience, and you'll get kicked out of Startup School and other YC events as well. One new thing we're trying with the forum this year that I'm extremely excited about are local channels. So we have 114 cities that have 150 or more founders all around the world, and we've created a local channel for each one of those. We want you to use those channels. Use them to get support for things that are specific to your market, and for organizing meetups. That's something that we really are excited about for this Startup School as well. So we are wanting to make those a really great, really vibrant place, and we hope you use them. Finally, on the forums, we have a number of AMAs. I'm really excited about this. We have some great YC founders, YC partners lined up to do AMAs. Some of those will be just sort of traditional text AMAs like you may have seen on Reddit or other places. Others of them are going to be the live AMAs that Eric, who spoke earlier, is going to be doing with other partners and members of the YC community. I'm really excited. I think these are going to be a wonderful opportunity for you to get direct feedback from experts, and so I really hope that everyone participates. You'll see the links to those coming out in the weekly newsletter every Monday, and so just be watching for that. And as soon as, every Monday we'll have a few of those threads live and ready to go. You can post anytime during the week, and we'll get back to you when the AMA is scheduled. We have incredible deals. This is honestly a huge value of Startup School. We have dozens of companies who have offered really great deals, companies like AWS, Brex, Google Cloud, Retool, Stripe, and many others have offered great deals for startup school founders. There are over $30,000 worth of deals, and this is something you should take advantage of. It's free money. It's going to help your startup. Go check it out. And finally, we have the library. The library is a collection of the highest value essays, blogs, some videos as well, on specific topics that are really relevant for you as startup founders. Now, I do not recommend you go through and read everything link by link in the library. It's just, a lot of this will not be relevant depending on exactly where you are in your startup journey. But I recommend you do go through, click through, familiarize yourself with the sort of sections we have. We have things about, finding co-founders, launching, evaluating ideas, and all of those have like a number of very high quality articles from people who know what they're talking about. So go through, click through there, and I think some of those resources will be very applicable to you and your startup at whatever stage you are. If you need help or any support, we on the Startup School team are here for you, to support you, answer questions. We answer many emails every single day. Feel free to reach out. You can email us at startupschool@ycombinator.com. We monitor that inbox. We'll get back to you shortly. You can also just post on the forum. We have a special channel for feedback. And finally, feel free to tweet at me or direct message me on Twitter. My handle is on the screen, and it's just CORBTT. I am really excited to work with all of you. I think this is going to be a wonderful course, and I am looking forward to seeing what all of you build.